Hello, Sara Peternell here with Family Nutrition Services. Today I thought I would address a topic that's pretty interesting but pretty critical to sort of the foundation of a Hashimoto's diagnosis, and that is about antibodies. A lot of my clients come to me and they have been given a diagnosis by their primary care doctor or maybe an endocrinologist, and they've been told that they have Hashimoto's disease, that they'll need to take medication, and that it is a disease that they will have for the rest of their lives. A lot of people are not given more detailed information about what this means. So I wanted to share just a little bit about Hashimoto's as an autoimmune disease and also Hashimoto's antibodies to the thyroid and what that means as well. And I'm going to try to simplify it a little bit without using some of the more technical terms. You can find much more detailed information on my website under my blogs, especially there's an entire blog dedicated to lowering anti-thyroid antibodies through food and nutrition and how that is possible for many people. But what I want to tell you is that when you develop an autoimmune disease, there are dozens and dozens of autoimmune diseases and many that we are still just learning about today. But some of the most common ones are ones that you've probably heard of before, such as Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, which is autoimmunity to your thyroid. There's also Graves' disease, which is also an autoimmune thyroid condition, but it has slightly different clinical presentation. I'm not going to be referring to Graves today, mainly just Hashimoto's, but also there are a host of other autoimmune diseases that include things like Crohn's and celiac disease, inflammatory bowel diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, type 1, diabetes, and so on and so forth. Asthma is another condition that falls into that autoimmune category. So when a person is given a diagnosis, they're often not told that this is an autoimmune disease, and so many people actually think that Hashimoto's is just a disease of their thyroid. But autoimmune disease actually originates within the immune system. And so when you are tested for this type of disease and you are told that you have elevated autoantibodies to your thyroid, it actually means that there is something misguided or wonky going on within your immune system, and that activity is directed towards your thyroid gland. So I always start a conversation with any of my clients who come in and have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's and just aren't sure what this means. It means that in their immune system, there could be any number of triggers, maybe throughout their life or currently. And again, some of those triggers might be genetics, it might be diet, it might be lifestyle, it might be viral, it might be stress, it might be certain medications, it can be hormones, so on and so forth. This perfect storm of triggers for autoimmune disease takes place in the immune system, and more than likely that process is also taking place in the digestive system. So there's lots and lots of evidence that actually tells us that the origin of autoimmunity is actually in a dysfunctional digestive system or a dysfunctional digestive tract. And you maybe have heard the term before, leaky gut. Leaky gut is a very kind of popular buzzword now in holistic healthcare. But basically what that means is that there is a certain amount of intestinal permeability. And intestinal permeability means that proteins and pathogens that are on the inside of your digestive tract, on the inside of the tube, are actually passing through where they should not be into the bloodstream. And that is because of intestinal permeability. So I like to give this example. If you see my hands, when I have them very tightly sealed, you could probably pour a certain amount of water in my hands and it would not drip onto the floor. But if you have some openings from inflammation, from certain foods, maybe medications, again, stress, have you ever taken an Advil or drank a glass of alcohol? All these things can contribute to leaky gut. We all have some degree of leaky gut. It just depends on whether or not for you leaky gut is actually going to translate into some dysregulated immunity issues. So if you have leaky gut, then clearly you could pour water through my hands and you would see that it would drip onto the floor. That's because there are openings. And the gut tissue in our bodies, our digestive tissue, is just one cell layer thick. That's it, just one cell of epithelial tissue. So it's very vulnerable and it's very sensitive tissue. And so if our bodies are constantly exposed to inflammatory foods, chemicals, medications, alcohol, stress, hormone imbalances, and of course if we have that genetic predisposition, this is where the origin of autoantibodies to the thyroid actually starts. This is where it all begins, is in the gut, because the immune system gets confused by this exposure through the leaky gut to things in the body that shouldn't be there. So the immune system actually goes from being on maybe moderate alert for things like viruses and bacteria and fungus and things like that. It goes on high alert to actually be trying to figure out what it should be paying attention to. Should it be paying attention to maybe a protein from a grain like gluten, or should it be paying attention to other proteins from foods or other chemicals in the food supply, maybe medications that are passing through. So now the immune system is a little bit confused, and it's going after just about everything, and the immune system gets a little bit fired up. So the response of the body over time with this wonky immune system is that your body can develop antibodies to your own tissue. And our bodies have thyroid receptor sites all throughout our entire body. So even though the thyroid is a tiny little butterfly-shaped gland that sits right here on the front of the neck or right in front of the throat, you have thyroid receptor sites in the tips of your pinkies and the tips of your toes and in your knees and in your reproductive organs and in your skin and your hair and all over your body. You have these thyroid receptor sites. And so your body can mistakenly create autoantibodies to your own tissue when leaky gut is present. So my approach with nutrition and Hashimoto's and elevated antibodies is that by working together to use the appropriate foods, sometimes supplements where necessary, definitely lifestyle measures such as stress, coping mechanisms, meditation, gentle exercise, getting to bed on time. But this combination of factors, in combination with your doctor's guidance, diagnosis, and prescription and treatment, we call this the middle path. And this is one way of addressing lowering your anti-thyroid antibodies so that you can, A, reduce symptoms of Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, and also you can start to rewire your immune system so that you don't have this pattern of autoimmunity in your body. So I want you to take a visit over to my website, maybe read more there on my blog posts, and I'll be sharing more about the differences between different types of antibodies and other information related to Hashimoto's. If you haven't yet watched my Hashimoto's symptoms journey, I would encourage you to go back and watch that, because I'm sure my symptoms probably are much like yours. I've worked with dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds, of Hashimoto's clients over the years, and I think we have a lot of things in common when it comes to symptoms at times of diagnosis. So thank you for tuning in today, and please keep watching, and I'll see you soon.